Hello, hello. Happy Two Truths and a Lie Day. Sorry I'm late. It doesn't matter that I'm late because the only people watching this very beginning are the people watching the replay. And you don't care that I'm late because you're watching the replay because you were late too. I feel like this side looks too fat. I'm going to get into it in a minute. I promise. I'm excited to talk about this topic today. Laura's been sending me her thoughts. All right, we're going to get into it here in a sec. Free weights versus machines. The age-old debate, which one's better? I'm going to answer it here today. We're going to put this issue to bed. Nobody will ever ask this question again after today's live. Forever in the history of the world will anybody ever question this. Before I get into this, a reminder, this week is High Protein Breakfast Challenge. Make sure you are getting a high protein breakfast. I forgot to take a picture of mine this morning. I'm going to post anyway for accountability. And I'm going to use the hashtag. You don't have to have a picture. If you destroyed your breakfast and it was really good, but you don't have a picture, feel free to post about it anyway and just use the hashtag. Okay. So if you want a chance to win free coffee this Friday, we're sending somebody a $5 Starbucks gift card. Post your breakfast with you attempting to get high protein in your breakfast for a chance to win a free coffee this Friday, okay? Foundations members, you know you get a second opportunity to win, so keep posting. By the way, we are in week 2 of Strong Body Foundations program. That's our 3-month small group coaching course. This is the first time that we have done this one. I am very excited about it. And you guys, they're doing so well. I am so proud of everybody. Many of our clients are enjoying it too. They all get in for free. Huge plus to working with us one-on-one is that all boot camps, challenges, foundations courses, all of that stuff, you get to join for free, automatically roped in. And I always forget like how beneficial it is for our one-on-one clients to return to these foundational skills or to have these like boot camps or challenges, these fun like little things to break up the everyday of what they're doing and what they're working on. So I just absolutely love the camaraderie of everybody. And it's just a lot of fun. Earlier this week, we did a whole hour-long training on meal planning. And tomorrow is going to be all about gym confidence and comfort in the gyms. I'm very excited about that. I've also got a mini deadlift, like mini course coming out for that group as well. It's going to be a 3-part deadlift mini course. So overall, just really pumped. So stay tuned. Keep your eyes on the group because we're going to have this foundations course again. I haven't decided exactly when, but we're definitely going to do this again. And there's going to be a 4-week boot camp coming up as well. That one will come before the next foundations course, but lots of fun things happening. There was something else I was going to say. Oh, the holiday survival guide is tomorrow. So guys, make sure you're here for that. That's going to be a good one. We're going to sit here and talk about tips and strategies and tricks to make sure that you can sail through the holidays confidently and not feel like you are starting from scratch come January. Okay. All right. Free weights versus machines. If you're here live, can you please say hello? And if you're watching the replay, can you please say replay? All right. I have to share multiple things on my screen today. So I need to make sure I have everything properly pulled up. So let's talk about Two Truths and a Lie first. Well, obviously, this whole thing is Two Truths and a Lie, but we'll cover the actual thing. So this is the Two Truths and a Lie today, and this was a fun one because people were kind of all over the map with this one. So before I kind of answer this, okay, free weights versus machines. Some obviously say that free weights are better than machines because of stabilizer muscles, utilizing your core better, has a better translation to real life. You have the ability to work on your balance. You have the ability to add more weight in a more realistic way, etc. Okay. Some people might actually say that machines are better because they're maybe safer, maybe because you can focus more on specific muscles. You don't need to worry too much about perfect form. They might be a little bit easier to figure out. Okay, so there's definitely people in both camps, but let's look at the research. Okay, so I want to remind you that here are the 3 things. I'm actually not going to answer it right away because I want to go through the research first. So number 1, so the answers were all over the map. Number 1 was that free weights are overall better for strength and muscle than machines. Is that true? Is that a lie? Remember, there's only one lie here. And number 3, I'm gonna go directly to number 3 because a lot of people actually guessed number 2, that was the lie. But my question to you, if you guess number 2, is how can 1 and 3 both be true if 2's the lie? Because 1 says free weights are overall better for strength and muscle. But number 3 says that machines and free weights are equally good at building strength and muscle. So how can both of those be true? So clearly one of those is the lie, which I guess I'm giving it away a little bit. Number 2 says, if getting stronger at a specific machine or lift is your goal, then it is necessary to engage in progressive overload in that specific machine or lift. So if you want to get stronger at squats, it is necessary for you to squat. If you want to get stronger at the leg press, it is necessary for you to leg press. That is true. If you want to get stronger at a specific thing, you need to engage in that specific thing in order to get stronger in it. But let's look at the research to determine which one is better. Free weights, machines, or are they equally better at building strength and muscle? So I want to share something else with you real quick. Hopefully I still have it pulled up and it's very easy to access. Yes, I do. So this is it's like a research review. Oh, I need to have it actually up to scroll it. That's nice. That's easy. Hold on. There we go. Okay. So this is and can I even move it? There we go. Sorry, guys. Sorry for all the pauses. Okay, so this is a research review article by Lane Norton. Some of you guys might know him. And this is a meta-analysis on literally free weights versus machines. This is where I got the idea for this today. So free weights versus machines for muscle gains. And essentially what they did here was it's a meta-analysis, meaning they looked at multiple studies. It was like over 16 studies, I believe it was. Yeah, it was 16 studies. They looked at 16 studies that have been done on this exact topic. And basically they only looked at the best 16. So there have been more than 16 studies done on this topic, but they only looked at the ones that they thought were valid or that, matched up, that had good research, that were valid. So they looked at these 16 studies cross-sectionally and gathered an opinion or created an article on it, right? So that's essentially what this is. So some important things to note without actually having to read all of this is that the age of the participants across the board was roughly 25-ish. So we're looking at young people. 6 out of the 16 studies were done on trained individuals, and the other 10 were done on untrained individuals. So that's important because somebody who's already trained is going to respond different to stimulus than somebody who's untrained. Somebody who's untrained is going to respond to any stimulus that you give them because it's the first time their muscles are having that stimulus. Whereas somebody that's trained, a lot of times I prefer to look at studies on trained individuals because it's a lot more applicable to me and our audience, because our audience are people who typically already engage in strength training in some way, and they want information that's more valid to them. Something else that's important to note about the study is that this meta-analysis is that the studies mainly used squat versus leg press and bench press versus machine press. So we were looking at really these two exercises, or these 4 exercises. All of the studies do tend to lean. So I'm going to show you here. If you look down here, this is kind of a chart that shows this was the study, and here's like the data, and this is where kind of everything fell. So down here, if it favored machines or favored free weights, and you can see that some of the studies favored favored machines. A lot of them are mostly in the middle. But if there's a lean in one direction, the lean is towards favoring free weights, right? So if we look at this image, you can see that there's a greater lean towards favoring free weights, right? Yeah, so essentially what they found was that the free weights group, when the group that trained using free weights was tested on free weights, they performed better and then the machine group. Likewise, when the group that trained on machines, the groups I should say, that trained on machines were tested on machines, they performed better than the group that had trained on free weights. So shocker, if you want to get better at a specific exercise, you need to train that specific exercise. But it's also interesting that people who trained on free weights trained on machines still performed better on that machine than somebody who had trained with free weights. So that's interesting, right? The muscle size, we will say that the muscle size consistently, there was no difference across the board in muscle size. They were really noticing no difference in participants in muscle size. Okay, so what does this mean? Let me put that down, pull back up my notes. So what does this mean, right? It means that machines and free weights are equally good at building muscle, building actual muscle, hypertrophy, making the muscle bigger. But building the muscle is different than strength. And for me, the real question is, well, which is better for strength? Okay. So something to keep in mind when asking this question is, I want you to stop and really think, what is strength? What does that mean? How can you test strength holistically? You can test muscle size directly. You can directly compare a muscle undergoing a certain stimulus and then seeing if it grew. You can compare it to somebody else's muscle to see if it's bigger or if it grew more, right? But strength is very specific to a movement being performed, right? So I might be able to do a 235-pound deadlift, but maybe somebody whose job is a mover, they move furniture for people, maybe they can pick up a couch way easier than me, even if she can't deadlift the same weight as me. So who's stronger? The person who can seamlessly lift up a couch or the person who can deadlift 235 pounds? Clearly, she's stronger at couch lifting and I'm stronger at deadlifting. But the point is that it's really hard to compare our strength if there's no couch and no deadlift bar in front of us. If we're just standing there, how are you going to determine who's the stronger person? You really can't, because strength, it requires specificity, right? It needs to be in a movement or doing something in particular. So therefore, it makes sense that we need to look at strength in terms of the movement that we're doing, right? And it also makes sense that it's really hard to compare, right? However, strength from a similar exercise to another does carry over. The question is, which has better carryover? So in my couch deadlift example, if I can deadlift 235 pounds, let's say I never deadlift and I just go try to lift up a couch. And then I do a 12-week program where I focus on deadlifting. I never touch a couch. And I focus on deadlifting for 12 weeks. And I focus on getting stronger and I build up to a 235-pound deadlift. Is that going to then, when I go back to lift up the couch, is that going to make it easier to lift up the couch? Yes, it is, because it's a similar movement. I have to get down, I have to hinge over a little bit, and then I have to come up. I have to do a very similar movement, and getting stronger to deadlift is going to help me lift up that couch, right? If we reverse that, if I never touched a deadlift bar, but I only lifted heavy couches, and let's say I lifted progressively heavier couches over and over again for 12 weeks, if I then go to try to lift a 235-pound deadlift bar, is that strength that I built lifting that couch going to help me lift the deadlift bar? It probably will a little bit, but my logic tells me not as much, right? Not as much. Now, if only a study directly compared something like this, we actually don't necessarily have that. So if we're looking at that in terms of a leg press or a squat, do we think that the strength you would build in a leg press would then carry over to a squat, as well as doing a squat would carry over to a leg press? Okay. And the question that the thing that makes sense in my head is, wouldn't the one with the most carryover technically be the better exercise for strength? Like, I would think so. So if we're looking again at the deadlift couch example, I would think that the better exercise would be the deadlift, because that's the strength. My logic tells me that the strength I would build in a deadlift would carry over to picking up couches better than picking up couches would translate to doing a deadlift. And I know that's a really rudimentary example, but it makes it simple to kind of think about. So if we're thinking about leg pressing, sure, if I only leg press for 12 weeks and then I try to go squat, am I going to be able to squat better or more than I would have before doing leg presses for 12 weeks? Probably. But my logic tells me that if I leg press once and then squat for 12 weeks and then go to try to do a heavier leg press, that I'd be able to do an even heavier leg press than I would vice versa with a squat. Does that make sense? So more from this study though. So that was me, that was my logic, and that was Laura's logic, because her and I have been talking about this since yesterday. More from this study in particular. the isometric strength on machines that neither group used was what they used basically to test people at the end. So they would take groups, these studies in general would take groups and have them do machines for a certain amount of time. Then they would test their strength on the machine, and then they would test their strength on a free weight exercise, and then they'd flip it vice versa. Then they had free weights group and they cross-sectionalized these people. And then they also looked at muscle growth. Muscle growth was across the board, but strength was kind of mostly no meaningful differences between the free weights and machines group, as long as progressive overload was applied and proper form was utilized. So proper form meaning that the muscle gets to full extension and full contraction, and progressive overload is that we're adding more over time. So muscle growth was no different, and strength was no real meaningful difference. But the way that they tested this strength was in some sort of isometric strength on a machine that neither group used. So I still feel, and Lara brought up a really good point, I still feel that necessarily isn't maybe the best way to really determine strength. Our general opinion is that free weights are still better for strength, okay? And here's our thought process. When I say our, I'm talking about me and Lara, because we've been talking about this. And she brought up a good point here. This study tested the isometric strength on a machine that neither group had trained on, right? Or these studies, generally, that was the way that generally these studies tested that. And Lara came up with a good way to do this study that would, in my mind, make way more sense. And our opinion is that free weights still carry over better, right? So a free weight would still carry over, a free weight squat would still carry over to a leg press more than the leg press would carry over to the free weights. So it would be really cool to see a study where one group squatted for X weeks and then did a leg press and vice versa. And they technically did these in the studies, but I would like to see, they did that in the study, but I would like to see that actually being the thing that was tested. And then switch it and compare again. And I would like to see the carryover from that, right? So the other reason that our general opinion is that free weights are still technically better is that because of the fact that free weights still carry over better to real life strength, period. I mean, imagine the position that you have to get into for a leg press versus a squat. Most leg presses, you're lying down in some kind of way and then you're pushing away from you. How often are you in that position in life where you have to push something away from you? But how often are you in life in a position where you have to squat down to pick something up, or you have to squat down to do something, right? There's way more carryover from a free weight exercise to real life. And not to mention, free weights still engage your stabilizing muscles and your core more than machines. When you're laying down in a leg press, you can basically turn off everything but your legs and your glutes. You don't really have to have any other part of your body activated. But in a free weight squat, you need to be engaged like from the top of your head down to your big toe, right? I mean, you need to be completely engaged and all of those little muscles are picking up. So you're improving your balance, you're improving your overall stability. So what's the answer? You decide, okay? According to this study, it's number 3 that's the lie, that they are, no. According to this study, hold on, I have to look at my thing again. If we're looking at this specific study, then I need to pull up my tutors again. Here it is. Share this with you. All right. If we're looking at this specific study, then it's number 1, that's the lie, that free weights are overall better for strength and muscle than machines. Because this meta-analysis, this meta-analysis directly says in its conclusion that there is no meaningful difference, and anybody that says so is wrong, okay? But my logic still tells me, and it would say that machines and free weights are equally good at building strength and muscle. But my logic still tells me that free weights have an overall slight edge, right? So reality, what's the answer? It depends, right? And that's almost always the answer, guys. But you guys have to decide what makes more sense to you, but knowing the information, knowing the logic, and knowing yourself and what your goals are. So really, the true answer is that using both is probably the best approach, right? Machines are going to be fabulous for isolating certain muscles. Machines are great for that. They are better at making it easier to focus on that single muscle and that single development. They're better for people who have injuries or have some kind of reason why they can't necessarily use free weights, right? If you have an injury, then a machine is going to be your best bet for rehab. It's going to be easier so that you don't have to think about your form all of the time. It's going to be easier for somebody who's new to the gym, maybe a little bit uncomfortable. Maybe the free weight section is a little bit intimidating and you're not really sure. You can still make a lot of progress, tons of progress, all of the progress you might need using only machines without ever having to enter that. However, using free weights is going to be really good for enhancing your total body strength and carry over to everyday life. Free weights are going to be better if you do want to get better at your form and minimize your risk of injury in everyday life. Because I'm going to tell you, if you can do a proper squat, it is 100% going to help minimize risk of injury in everyday life, versus if you are leg pressing, you are still going that, and only leg pressing, you will still, building strength and building muscle in general is going to help minimize risk of injury in everyday life, but it is not going to help as much as doing a free weight squat, because again, doing a free weight squat mimics what you would be doing in real life. So you're learning to engage your core, you're learning to engage the stabilizing muscles. So in my opinion, free weights still have that slight edge. However, you can still make a massive amount of progress using only machines. And the reality is you should probably do a little bit of both. Okay. So there's your answer. 2 truths and a lie is that there is no one right answer. Could be 1, could be 3. According to this meta-analysis, it's 1, that free weights, that is the lie. Free weights are overall better. But I still, even after reading this, Laura and I have been having a conversation about it. Like, I still think that free weights have a slight edge in terms of strength. Okay. But again, it depends on what's your goal. Okay. Some people don't really care that much about building strength in a deadlift or building ultimate strength to translate into their everyday life so they can lift up a couch. I mean, I would still argue that most people should probably deadlift or hinge with free weights in some way, because that is going to greatly minimize your risk of injury in terms of your low back. Which, can you imagine doing a hinge exercise? The ease isn't as, there's machines that do hinge exercises, but they're not going to be as efficient. They're going to be in a weird, funky pattern. Have you ever tried to do a deadlift on a Smith machine where the bar is stable? It's really hard to mimic that movement and need the same amount of muscles. So very interesting. I still say 3 is the lie. Who's that? That machines and free weights are equally good. Yeah, I kind of feel that way too. I kind of feel like 3 is the lie. But according to this study, 1 would be the lie. So there you go. But it's still nice to know, even despite where you tend to lie, now knowing all of this, it's still nice to know that machines are fabulous, right? I mean, I feel like machines get almost like in the strength training world sometimes like a little bit demonized. Like, oh, you just do the machines. Like, machines are fabulous. My mom goes in and she does the Nautilus circuit 2 or 3 times a week, and she has built strength and muscle and definition in her back and in her arms, and she looks good and she moves good and she feels good. Do I still think she should get out on the weight floor and do barbell like Romanian deadlifts? Absolutely. But the fact remains that she has been able to have great strength and muscle development using only machines. And she's been able to do it in a way that's accessible for her. It's easy for her. It's low stress. It's manageable. In the middle of her workday, she can hop on this circuit and not have to worry about if she's doing it correctly, if she's going to hurt herself. So I think that has massive benefit. For somebody who's hurt their knee and can't necessarily get into certain positions to do certain exercises with free weights, you'd be able to hop on a machine and still get a lot of benefit. I think that's amazing. So machines absolutely are fabulous. The best thing ever you can do for your strength, I still think no. I still think free weights are going to have the best carryover to your everyday life, which in my mind, that is really like a better definition of what it means to be strong. Is, yeah, I can do this deadlift and I can also lift up this couch. And that helps me be able to lift up this couch without hurting myself, right? So I personally want the machine for hip thrust. I don't want to set up the regular barbell hip thrust. Of course. Actually, that's a good one that actually translates really well. So a standing hinge movement, like a deadlift or an RDL, is really hard to replicate properly on a machine. But a hip thrust, when you're in that horizontal position, they're much, much better. And I agree with you. I I am so freaking tired of barbell hip thrusts. I have zero desire to do them. And I would love to have access to those really awesome machines. I mean, maybe technically I do. I haven't explored the machines as much at the gym that I go to, but I've been working out a lot at home lately, and I definitely don't have that. So yeah, machine hip thrusts are fabulous. I love leg press. I use leg press all the time. I think it's great. Yes, I do machines for hip thrusts because the bar hurts my pelvis. Yeah, that can be a good reason too. I put a pad on it, but it still definitely bothers me. So anyway, there we go. Good conversation, guys. Join us next week. We're going to do this again, 2 truths and a lie, and it'll be fun. So have a great rest of your evening, rest of your day, and go lift on a machine or a dumbbell, and it'll be great either way. Peace out.